thank you for joining me today and for listening through this video series with me about brokenness to breakthrough. You know, breakthrough isn't just an idea, it's a lifestyle, and it's something that you can achieve as a leader. I want to share something with you that's powerful for me and I believe can make a big impact on your life. I'd like you to order a copy of my book, Broken, How Being Broken Unlocked the Greatest Success of My Life. It's truth for me, and I believe it can be truth for you. And while you're waiting for the book to arrive, I just want to do something extra special for you. If you go to our website, morethanbreakthrough.com/broken, I'm going to give you a free audio version of the book that you can listen to while you're waiting for your written book to arrive. This is an audio that I recorded from the author's perspective in my own emotion, some of the most amazing experiences of my life through brokenness, through prison, and on to breakthrough. I really believe this can make a huge difference in your life. You know, when it comes to the end of the day, breakthrough is really your only leadership play.
So, welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Matt.
So, we've produced a number of these videos, but maybe people don't know who you are yet, and I think it'd be valuable just to give them a little bit about your experience and why you're here today and why you're qualified to talk about leadership. And we're going to talk about some disqualifications too. That'll be powerful.
Yeah.
So, just so people have a little background about your experience, I know you've been in business for over 30 years. You've owned 20 different businesses, 14 at one time. You've trained and hired thousands of employees and worked with some Fortune 500 companies. I know you've also served on boards for universities, banks. You've been a part of charitable foundations, and you've had some really amazing hobbies, such as flying planes for 30 years as well. But I know we could talk about all these things and how you achieved success and how you achieved wealth and status and influence, but that's not really why we're here today, because I know God did an extraordinary work in your life that started back in 2011. Isn't that true?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's totally true. That's where my qualifications became out of my disqualifications.
Yeah.
How's that go?
I love that. I love that. So now we're pretty deep into this series that we're calling B2B, from brokenness to breakthrough. And I want to just recap a little bit for our audience so that they kind of know what we've been through. If you haven't already watched our videos, I encourage you to go back. But starting today, we're going to talk about the frame. But the frame comes after we've talked about the mask, which is sort of this protective shell we put on to perform a certain role or meet a certain expectation. And then there's the loop. And the loop is where we have to act out the script that our mask dictates. And then we've talked about how that becomes sort of an endless repetition, and we wind up fighting the fight. We wind up fighting a battle that's not a battle we intended to be on. So today we're going to talk about the frame. One thing we didn't talk about last time, though, with the fight is how you may well end up exhausting your resources, fighting battles that aren't meant to be fight. Is that something that you found true as well?
That's absolutely true. Matt, probably the biggest thing that discourages leaders and was a trauma to me was trying to muster the energy, the strength to actually transition my battle. You know, it's like fighting on two fronts. I felt like, well, I have to fight this fight that I'm in right now. I have no choice. But how do I fight on multiple fronts? I mean, when we've committed and exhausted our resources in an endless, defensive, circular, whatever you want to call it, loop, we no longer have the resources needed for real traction, real success.
Well, one of the reasons we get into the fights that aren't on the right battlefields is we might have a frame of reference that's faulty. And today we didn't want to talk about the frame. What is the frame exactly, as you would define it?
The frame is the view you have of life, the view you have of yourself. I found for myself that often the things that I thought were important, that I battled for, that I continually pursued, the persona that I wanted to be or to believe in, was built on the fact that I had a subconscious belief. The framework of my life was that I wasn't successful unless I was being validated by other people. I mean, Matt, imagine, you've mentioned before, some people can't maybe relate exactly to my story, but I think on some level they can. Imagine, though, having millions of dollars in the bank, having already retired, having favor with people, and a great family life and existence, and still being dissatisfied. Mm-hmm. Because the framework of my life, or the frame I was viewing my life through, told me that I wasn't worth anything. That I needed, in order to be satisfied, I needed people's approval. I needed something that I didn't have. And so all of those things that I did have weren't giving me what I hoped for, because the frame that I had placed over my life didn't allow for it.
Yeah. And that's where we talk about the faulty frame. We may not realize that it's faulty, but it's producing a result that's not necessarily offensive, it's defensive, right? That's
right.
What we talked about. But can you give some concrete examples for those watching this video of what it looks like when you have a frame that is faulty? What are some examples where you just adopt it as your core belief and start living it out?
Well, that's a great question. And that's part of the reason for the sequence of topics we've had.
Yeah.
I really encourage people who maybe have picked up this or linked on this video and haven't seen it or heard us talk about the mask, the loop, and the fight, because the frame is what defines each of those other things. Mm-hmm. The framework that we're viewing our lives with, who we believe we are, well, we could talk about that for a long time, dictates the masks that we're targeting, that we're trying to wear, trying to be, not truly becoming, but we're scraping together all of our resources to protect this persona. We do it through endless loops of trying to continually support something that needs supported, because it won't stand on its own.
Yeah.
And we battle defensively to maintain that posture. That's all caused by the root level being the framework that we've defined, or the frame up, or the frame that we're looking through as we view life and our own lives.
Now, maybe to help people understand this frame and how it can be adopted instead of decided, is to give some examples. I know you have some good ones. One that I've shared with you is, many people say, I'm not good at math. A mutual friend has mentioned that to us. Well, I just decided in a certain grade I wasn't good at math, and that became their frame, so they didn't pursue anything to do with mathematics. Another one that has happened to many people over the years, as it was undiagnosable, was dyslexia, where they thought they weren't smart, and it became a frame of reference. You have a personal, very personal example of this.
Yeah, absolutely. My mother didn't actually get her first pair of glasses till she was in college. And she had terrible dyslexia, and her eyesight was bad enough, and this is back in the 50s, that she just thought she was dumb. She assumed she was seeing everything that everybody else was seeing. She couldn't stand to read the number of pages she needed to read to study, couldn't see the blackboard, couldn't understand what was going on. She thought she was dumb. Got that first pair of glasses, and guess what? That little framework changed everything.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. But what we believe to be true, whether it's true or not, defines our reality.
Isn't it amazing? So that's a good analogy, though, of your mom getting glasses and then suddenly experiencing a breakthrough where a whole new reality opened up. There was a sudden shift, and I know, not to go too deep on this story, but she went on to accomplish a great many things.
Oh, it's amazing.
By having a different frame, isn't that true?
That's right. That's absolutely correct. Still is.
Yeah. That's an awesome story. So the thing I have to ask, though, is, are all frames bad? Couldn't some frames help us as well as hurt us? Absolutely.
Much like the loops and the fight, the frame is necessary. Mm-hmm. It's essential. The interesting thing that I discuss at length, or talk to myself about in the book, Broken, that we're here to talk about today, is the way that my framework was built for my life. Mm-hmm. How I established those things in what I call, the circumstantial beliefs
tell me
of my
about that.
life. Well, I write about what I call the blessing phenomenon. Now, again, this might be in a different place in the spectrum than some business people are, But I had existed through decades that convinced me that whatever I attacked, I was going to be successful. And I believe that because I was being blessed and successful financially and in other ways, that my definition of that, my framework for God, was that He blessed me because I was doing what He wanted, which was to make money. And therefore, as long as I was accomplishing that goal, then He loved me.
So what I hear you saying, though, is if that got taken away from you or from me or from anyone, if you believed that I couldn't fail, that the evidence of money and wealth and success in my life were evidence of God's favor, if that went away, couldn't that really affect our view on life from here on forward? It would feel that it was over, wouldn't it? It would feel we're non-functioning anymore.
Try sitting at a little school desk in a 10 by 10 prison cell, looking out the window, watching guys walk around an endless track, and asking yourself if it's not over.
You're talking about a view from prison. Yeah.
Talking about being in a situation where I felt completely at odds with the framework of God, even, because, how could this be true? How could this be true? I always defended God. I always was telling people that I believed in God. I always, all of these little feeble efforts that were little circular loops that to me substantiated my life and my faith, were all meaningless. Because the framework I had was that my faith, my life, my success, my business, my entire persona was backed up by this belief that if I'm being blessed, then that's the stamp of affirmation.
Yeah.
That's the stamp of affirmation. I need people's affirmation. I need to feel that God's affirming me. And I believe that, I might have been the center of the universe. I'm pretty sure that in my framework, Matt, I was the absolute center of the universe.
And it's interesting, I've never heard you say it quite that way, but by assuming that God's approval comes and goes, it also implies that He might be disappointed with you. And that is a faulty frame, as we know from Scripture. But this book you've entitled Broken, because it sounds like what you've learned since 2011 is such a valuable insight. I want you to share this. What does it mean to have a frame of brokenness, and how does that get to breakthrough?
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I love the concept of brokenness within my new framework, my new frame of life. When I think of brokenness right now, Matt, I think of the clay that's being molded into something different. I think of areas of my life that were crusty and already solid and seemingly immovable, and that through the process they've been crushed and made vulnerable again to the point that I could be shaped into something beyond my imagination. And the idea of brokenness for me is not a one-time event. There are some big one-time events that change people. We all know that.
Yeah.
Heart attack, loss of a close relative or spouse or whatever. All these things can really change us. But what I've embraced about brokenness is that it's a lifestyle.
Right.
And that it can be a lifestyle. And I'm viewing my life through the frame that if I want, business terms here, if I want continuous improvement, then it's going to come through an attitude and a framework of brokenness that allows me to subject myself to the possibility of breakthrough. Because it's on the other side of brokenness. Now, how extreme that brokenness is another entire story. If we wait until something is so extreme that when it's broken, it just creates a catastrophic effect.
Right.
But I don't believe that's necessary. There's so many areas of my life that I'm working with intentionality towards breaking old frameworks, old perspectives, the way I viewed people, the way I viewed the church, the way I viewed myself. And continually I'm asking the questions, which is a part of, to me, the process of breakthrough. I'm asking the questions that help me define a new frame for my life.
That's amazing. I just want to stop here for 1 second and make sure that I'm understanding and everyone else is understanding. What you're implying is that we could take off our masks, we could leave the loop, we could decide not to fight a fight that's exhausting our resources from a defensive posture. And that in that, there might be some things that aren't so pretty, that are hard to deal with, and that God could take the broken pieces, put them back together, and you're saying, if I hear you right, create something entirely new and better from all that. So with that, if I'm understanding you right, how has that influenced your leadership and frankly your life?
I want to tell you something that to me is a powerful reminder, and that is the moment at which, and I write about it in the book, a moment at which I realized and found that fear and failure are not nearly as powerful as I thought they were.
Wow.
You know, I couldn't justify in my mind failure. And I would have always said, I don't have any fear. I'm not afraid of anything.
Sure.
But failure to me was like a bottomless pit. I mean, when I found myself in brokenness, it was, I would have fought the fight till my death if it had not been the intervention, I believe, of God to show me what my life could be like. Mm-hmm. If I'd not done that, I would have continued on that same path forever. But once I finally realized where that path went, what it was all about, and where it went, it just changed everything about my existence. Now, the redefinition is just a part of my DNA now.
And it goes right back to our goals, which is to unlock purpose, live with passion, and become the leader you are meant to be. I think maybe there's parts of your story, Greg, that people can identify with. They might not go through what you went through. I hope not. That's the point of the book. But they certainly can identify wanting purpose, unlocking that, living with passion, and becoming the leader that they were meant to be. But there's a bit more to this process. Actually, in the next video, we're going to talk about the whole idea of breakthrough and that unlocking process. Could you talk just a little bit about that?
Strangely enough, as business people, we tend to want to think of breakthrough as like a launch out into space. Maybe it's like we figured out how to turn on a rocket pack or something. My experience with breakthrough, quite honestly, is that point at which there is no return. We're unwilling to return, and we walk through into a place we've never been. Somewhere that we've never been before. It's not in any loop we've ever, and the loop gets inverted, and the fight becomes a meaningful fight, and the mask that we're trying to wear is not a mask any longer. It becomes the person that we were created to be. I mean, to me, it's like stepping through the looking glass. It really, I can't think of a better example, and I've never used that before. I've never even thought of it that way before. It's like stepping through and realizing that what we thought was a wall, or maybe what we thought was the pavement we were going to crash against, and we couldn't stop fighting long enough to even think that we could devote any resources to moving down this avenue of breakthrough. That when we walked through the looking glass, everything, the pyramid was turned right side up. Our leadership, our relationship, everything about it, became what we dreamed it always could be.
There's so many good examples in the book, Greg. This is one of the most powerful concepts I feel that leaders could have. I want to spend the next video explaining it and unpacking it for people. Thanks for sharing in this video.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us in this breakthrough leadership video, and we'll see you in the next one.